Hello everyone and welcome to Don't Be Bored. Today I'm here to review for you Quoridor, I think that's how it's pronounced even with the Q, Pac-Man edition. This is a brand new release of the classic Quoridor, but it's not just a retheming with Pac-Man and the ghosts. No, there is also a special mode. We'll jump into how the game plays as well as the new mode, and I'll give you my thoughts and sort of opinions on it overall, but also of the two modes, the classic and the Pac-Man editions. Let's jump into it, and just know that it was provided to me by the distributor. So there's two ways to play Quoridor, Classic or Pac-Man, and you don't necessarily need to know the rules of one version to play the other, but let's go with Classic first and then we'll touch on Pac-Man afterwards. In this case you are going 1v1, you both have a piece. In this case you can both be ghosts, or one player is Pac-Man, one player as a ghost, and you're going to start on the back line of the board facing across from each other. You've both got 10 of these little fence pieces that get added to the board, and you're trying to just get across. You have to get across first, and whoever does wins. Now it's a little more complicated than that, of course. On your turn you can either move a space up, down, left, right. You're not allowed to move diagonally normally, or you can place one of the walls down. Now these must go between sort of 4 squares perfectly in the middle, and it can't sort of hang off the edge of the board. And you're going to be doing that, and the only limitation is that you can't actually box someone in. You can't make it impossible for them to get across, but you can make it as hard as you like. The only additional rule comes from jumping over someone, leapfrogging. If you are on your turn right next to the opponent's piece, you can leapfrog over the top of them, effectively gaining an extra space. Otherwise, you're placing a wall or moving and trying to get to that finish line first. In the Pac-Man edition, well, you're not placing walls. Those start in a predefined place. Pac-Man is in the very middle, and the 4 ghosts are staring in at him. The game goes back and forth between the Pac-Man player and the others, the ghosts. Now that could be one player being the 4 ghosts, or up to 4 players splitting the ghosts between them. The Pac-Man player will be moving 2 spaces on their turn, followed by all the ghosts moving 1. However, if the ghost starts their turn looking at Pac-Man, they get to move 2. And it doesn't have to be in a straight line towards Pac-Man, but often you're probably going to want it to be. Pac-Man's aim in this case is to eat the 4 power pills that are put around the map. Now, the ghosts are trying to get to Pac-Man to stop him and land on his space before he does that. If they do that, one of the Pac-Man lives are removed, and the Pac-Man has 3 lives, just like in the arcade game, and then the board is reset, apart from any eaten power pills, and they go again. The twist here is that when Pac-Man does manage to get to one of the power pills and land on that space, they stop their current movement, and then they are given 3 spaces of bonus movement that they must do. If you go through a ghost during those 3 movements, you eat them, and they are removed from the board. They are returned if the ghosts after that do manage to catch Pac-Man when everything is reset, but otherwise it's then only 3 ghosts, maybe 2 ghosts, against Pac-Man. The Pac-Man mode ends in one of 2 ways. Either they have unfortunately lost their 3 lives, or they've managed to eat all 4 of the power pills, and then they are victorious. And well, that's how you play the 2 modes, so let's jump into some pros and cons. And first off, we'll talk overall, the production quality, and also the fact that there's 2 modes. So I really like the production of all of these Q-based sort of games, and Quoridor, in this case, with that Pac-Man theming, is really awesome. I like the fact you can both be ghosts in the normal mode, or one of you can still be Pac-Man, and the black sort of aesthetic with the blue trim on those walls and stuff. I think that looks really nice, and it is really very nice sort of look. And also that board is sort of big. It's not heavy, but heavy. It's got some weight to it. It feels like a solid game, and it feels like one of those sort of really classic games. Quoridor's been around for a little while now, not so much this Pac-Man version, but it feels like, you know, the way you're placing these walls out is chess-like, and those walls are satisfying when you put them down, and the production quality overall is really nice. It's a little hard sometimes. You've got to push like the power pills back into the insert in a certain way so they don't roll off it, etc. But the insert works relatively well, and well, it's a very good looking production. I think it certainly makes playing the game in either mode better, and the fact that there are 2 modes, I do think that's a great thing. I'm glad they didn't just retheme and, you know, put that theming on top. They actually went above and beyond that to try and add a second mode. Now let's jump into the 2 modes, and the one you're probably more interested in hearing about being this new version, so we'll start with the Pac-Man mode. Unfortunately, it's definitely the lackluster of the 2 modes. I much prefer the sort of classic Quoridor over the Pac-Man game, and that is because of 2 things. First of all, there's a couple of iffy rules. Now, it's not said anywhere in the rules, and it's also not said that it doesn't happen. In classic Quoridor, you do get to leapfrog if you are next to someone. Now, it doesn't say in the rules of the Pac-Man mode whether you can still do that or not, so I don't know whether the ghosts can leapfrog each other or not, but I believe they can, but it's just not clarified. At least I couldn't see it being clarified. The other thing is that the game starts off for Pac-Man really easy. The ghosts are spread out into the corners, and you can quite quickly make a charge to the first power pill, the second power pill, and all of a sudden then it starts to get really, really difficult. In fact, it's to the extent that by the end of it, when you're going for the last power pill, I honestly think if both players are evenly matched, if it's one person being the 4 ghosts or however many the ghosts versus the Pac-Man, if everyone's evenly skilled, it's basically going to be a stalemate until Pac-Man or the ghosts give up. And the reasoning for that is, it doesn't seem to matter too much when you get to that final one what you do as Pac-Man. Even with 2 movement, you just can't get to that final power pill, which is really frustrating because the game is really enjoyable up to that point. It's just, you almost need to be able to collect that power pill and at some point use it, like maybe within the next turn or 2, and then you have to use that ability. Because what happens is the ghost players know that final power pill is going to be really hard. So as long as not too many of the ghosts are eaten, and the only real way I can see you winning as Pac-Man is by eating some of the ghosts after power pills, so you're not against 4 ghosts for that final one. But then, if that's the only way seemingly Pac-Man can win, the ghost players can just back off. As soon as you're near one of the power pills, they back off, so your 3 movement are used, they're not eaten, and they can fall back and defend one of the others. If you can do it in one clean sweep, you maybe have a chance, but as soon as it resets and the ghosts come back, it's basically game over if there's only 1 power pill left, and I found that really unfortunate. Thankfully, there is the other mode, the classic Quoridor, which is a really enjoyable chess-like experience. When to move, when to block, and all that sort of stuff is really interesting, and you come up with some cool matchups where you're really scratching your head and going, should I block in this direction? And then you think you've just got around and they block you off and you're like, oh, I was really hoping you hadn't seen that. Or maybe you do manage to get past a point and you think, good, they can't block me in that direction. And it's actually only after a couple of games that you start to understand what the rulebook means by almost positive blocking. In a way, because there always has to be a route for you to get from where you are to the end point, the other side of the board, it means if you block the board off in a certain way, they have to leave the other route open to you. And you can make people almost go back on themselves as you've blocked once, blocked twice, blocked 3 times. Well, now they have to go all the way around your walls. And there's some really good plays with that. And you definitely, this is one of those games where you play one, someone wins, and you go, all right, you've won, fair, but rematch straight away, right? And you do, because it's a really quick, clean experience. And you start to see like, oh, this is what they were going for last time. I'm not going to fall for the same trap again. And then maybe you try and spring that same trap and make them go off in a weird and wonderful direction. And the choice is simple on your turn. Are you putting a wall down to block? Do you have any left? You only have 10. Or are you moving? And even sometimes your movement is giving a bit of information away to the other player of where you're hoping to not have blocked, etc. So I really have enjoyed the classic Quoridor. There is a small feeling at the end of a game of Quoridor Classic mode, and that is when you get to a certain point you kind of know who's going to win. It's more about like the journey than actually the final move. Like, yes, it's satisfying to get to the end, but it's almost the satisfaction of completing that blocking journey slightly better than your opponent. That's the victory, really, even though technically you do need to get to the end. Often you're like, okay, I have less squares to move, so I will be able to get to the end first. So you just like ding, 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 ding. I've won, yay! But that makes it feel like it's not a great ending. It's almost like the game ends though, that like 5 seconds before that, when you finally got out of that blocking brigade. You've got through there and you've managed to block them off, your opponent off enough to get that victory. So you get that sense of yes, almost like 5 seconds before the actual end. It's just a small oddity, but I thought I should mention it. So there you have it, Pac-Man Quoridor. I've really enjoyed it. I have to say, I love the Pac-Man theming. I don't necessarily love the Pac-Man mode that's included, but I am glad they tried something. Even if for me, it's not necessarily a perfect game mode, and I'll definitely be sticking just to the classic Quoridor gameplay. But I've enjoyed this battle of blocking, and as soon as we've finished one game, let's go on to the next. But let me know what you think of the game. Have you had a chance to play it? It's been shown off some conventions recently. There was a giant one at UK Games Expo. Have you been able to get hands-on? Are you going to go and try and get hands-on? Well, let us know in the comments section below. And until next time, have a wonderful Pac-Man blocking-filled good day.